as we go. Please ask any questions you may have in the Q&A. I may answer some as we go. Some of them I might not answer till the end because I'm going to do more of a Q&A at the end. But I would love your participation. So if you have things that you'd like to comment on or share as we're going, please feel free to put that into the Q&A so we can have that. And excited to have you all here today. So, all right. I like to start my talks with a quick exercise. And a lot of my talk is going to be, we're going to have a PowerPoint. So we're going to go through some different exercises as we go. But the first one we're going to do is we're going to do a quick exercise. And this is just a quick breathing technique. So I'm going to ask you all to just briefly close your eyes. And we're going to take some deep breaths. And I want you to think about this while you're taking these deep breaths, that you're taking these deep breaths fully down into your navel and that your whole bottom of your stomach is expanding. And then I want you to breathe out. And as you breathe out, I want you to think of that your stomach is actually squeezing to get every bit of air out of your lungs. And so I want you to do that 2 more times, breathing in and then breathing out. So I'm so excited to have everybody here today. So my intention today is to help you understand what has been holding you back in creating the lifestyle you want, where you may have old habits, patterns, or energies that don't align with where you're at anymore. And these could have been taught to you. You could have brought them up from people from your childhood, experiences you've had. But I want to draw some attention to where you want to be and where what you have now isn't in the same place and how we're going to begin to bring those closer together. So, all right. So one of the first practices we're going to do, and the reason that we do this is because, and I very much explain things as we go along. The reason that we do this is because I'm going to read you some words, and I want you to think of the way that you feel as I read them to you. So feel free to close your eyes if it makes it more beneficial for you. Close your eyes, and I'm going to read these 5 words, and I want you to think about what feeling or emotion comes up when I say them. So this is going to begin to show you where you are versus where you want to be. And the intention is to get you closer to where you want to be as soon as possible. So the first word, riches, wealthy, money, abundance, energy. So as I went through these words, what comes to mind for you? And if you guys want to throw things into the Q&A, you can. If not, that's fine too. But when we use words like riches and wealth, often there's a picture of something and possibly a person or a lifestyle. Thank you. I'm glad you're full of excitement and eager and joyful. I am too. So there's a picture or a lifestyle that comes to mind. And sometimes if you're old enough, you remember Lifestyle of the Rich and Famous and you have the Robin Leach voice come to you. But sometimes we also get into a place that there's a little bit of judgment that comes to mind about people who have those things in their life. So we want to begin to notice those nuances between what we want versus assigning negative things to people who have money. And this is not to say that any of us don't have money, but people who have more money than you may have this negative idea about that. And we need to begin to turn these around. So a lot of times the word money brings stress to people. People are stressed out because they associate it with something that they don't have as much as they want to have, or it makes them think about their bills. And thinking about their job, being stressed out about where they work. So it's a beginning to associate those words to things so that it can bring in the positive things that they want. So these are ways that we send mixed signals into the universe about where we want to be. We want financial freedom, but we think about financial stress. or we associate money with negative emotions. And if you want the universe to begin to help you out more, we need to begin changing these messages to more positive. So what about abundance and energy? Like, what was the thought and the feeling that you had when I said those two words? Because most people don't have as many triggers with those two words. They think of, and I want you to think of abundance like nature is abundant, but money is just a tool. We can be as abundant in money as we are in any other thing. And most people, so a lot of the ideas we get about finance is something that likely came from something else, some way we grew up. And we're looking at shining a light on those, because if you don't get an idea of where these old thoughts come from, you can't fix them. So we have to shine a light on the negative to bring it out so that we can get into something more positive. And then energy is one that I really like a lot. And I think it's very misrepresented. And I see a lot of people who believe in giving energy, but they don't receive very well. And if you're somebody who's likely to give more energy than you receive, you may have some financial problems. So we're going to get more into that. And give me just a moment while I share my screen. Okay. So money is only a tool, and it will take you wherever you want, but it does not replace you as being the driver. So having more money also means being more responsible. And as we go through this, I want you to think about a couple of things, and I want you to think about goals, because the big part of this is having goals that you want to reach when we're talking about your financial well-being. So these are some of the questions we're going to go through today. We're going to go through, what are your financial goals? What can money do for you? What is your number? Do you send mixed messages to the universe? So we were talking a little bit about that when I was asking about the way you feel when we're talking about money. What are the negative emotions that you associate? What support do you need? What are the things that you need to be able to bring in to create what you're looking to create? And some of this is the emotional stuff, and then there's, the physical actions that are going to have to go with it. And then how do you actually work towards attracting what you're looking to attract? So financial goals. And I really like this slide. I want to talk a little bit about one of the things that inspired me to doing this talk right now. I know that a lot of people are going through a lot this year. It's been a very difficult year. And one of the things that inspired me and made me change a lot of my financial circumstances and where I was at was due to basically, in the beginning of 2016, I had been learning how to do my goals probably for at least the last 6 years or so, maybe longer, 6 to 8 years maybe. And in 2016, I was sitting and I was writing down my goals. It was the beginning of the year, and writing down your goals should be like laying down dreams. You should be able to put the things that inspire you, what you want your future to look like, the things you want to do for yourself, your family, your significant other, whoever it may be in your life. And at the time, I had 2 teenagers. I was a single mom. And I remember as I was writing these things down, instead of feeling excited about what I wanted to create in my life, I got depressed. And I began writing things that I wanted to do for my children, vacations I wanted to take, these big things that would have been exciting for most people. And I began sinking. And fear began to set in. So I began to get fearful over, what if my air conditioning goes out? I began worrying about the roof on my home. I began worrying about the plumbing in my house, my car. What if I couldn't pay my rent the next month? And as I was writing these things down, I started crossing them off. One by one, I was crossing these off. And I began crossing them off because I started going into shrinking my goals to fit my circumstances. And I felt like having those type of goals was unattainable. So I want you to think about, what are your goals, not whether or not they're attainable. And it may not be a year, it may not be 5 years, but I want you to think about what they really mean to you and your ability to begin to bring those into yourself. And you can't do that if you don't actually go after them. And I don't want you to think about shrinking them for any reason. So some of these you may do while we're in this talk, but there's going to be a few things that I'm going to cue you that I want you to do. And the more that you put any of these into place, the more you're going to begin to get yourself where you want to be. So the first thing is having goals. You need to have goals that excite you. You need to have, and your goals can be something you can grow into. They may not be something you can achieve this year, but you want to be able to see, can you achieve them in 5 years, 10 years? Like, what would it look like to grow into these goals? And these don't just have to be financial, but they could create and help with a finance aspect to them. And after I had that incredible low, I turned a lot of things around in my life. I changed my job. I realized I was working for way too little. I also began changing my mindset. I began to get really educated about finance. I've actually worked in finance for years, and began to educate myself so that I could begin to educate other people so that I could begin to change this story. And we're going to get into more of that as well. Give me a second. Okay. All right. So what can money do for you? So not only do we want to think about the goals that you want to create, we want to begin to think about what having the money that you want to have can do for you. So between that negative emotions we talked about, and that we'll dive more into, I want you to think about the things that would be exciting. How would it feel if you could become debt-free? How would it feel if you didn't have to say no when you're in the grocery store with your children? Or you said no because, they were on one that day, as opposed to feeling like you're saying no because you can't afford it. How would it feel to know that you can go travel when you want to? And traveling is one of those things that's usually not quite as expensive as most people think it is. What if you could donate? What if you had enough money in your account that you were able to donate to the causes and the things that mean more to you? What if you were able to begin to build a business, putting your bills on auto pay so that you didn't have to think about them all the time? What if you could know that your retirement is going to be set, and in your retirement being set, that you're going to know that there's a date that you're going to be able to check off where you're like, that's the day that you're not going to have to go back to work again, and you can do the things that you enjoy versus the things you feel obligated to. All right. So here's the thing about goals. You have to be specific in what you want. And then there's something they call SMART goals. I go a little bit into the SMART goals. They need to be measurable, which means when you make a goal, you don't just say, I want to buy a home. You say, I want to buy a certain type of home. I imagine it would cost a certain amount, and I'd like to do it by X date. And I would like it to be in this area. Things like that. So these are goals. And then the way that you begin to bring the emotional connection in is you begin to imagine that experience happening. What would it be like to be sitting in your front yard? What would it be like to sit in your house and, to be painting the walls? What would it be like to be cooking in your kitchen or sitting in your living room with your children? So it's about creating that emotional connection to that experience. What would it be like to have that in certain period of time? So a big thing that a lot of people miss when they're creating goals is adding an emotional connection. And the emotional connection is really important, because you can't create the goal and not get emotionally connected to that future experience, which includes having, and then once you bring these all in, you can begin to create this action plan that has steps that are going to help you get to it. If you want to buy a home, you need to know what needs to be on your income statement. Do you need to make sure some debt's paid off? There's, do you need to put some money away for certain things? It could be just sitting down and making an appointment with a mortgage person to begin to have that conversation. Could be, and each of these, whether it's retirement, college, owning a business, there are people that specialize in this that you can talk to, that you can sit down with, that can help you figure this out. And a lot of them do what they do for free. Just so you know, a lot of these people are getting paid on the back end by helping you. So they're going to give you consultations for free. So don't think that this is about having to go spend a lot of money paying people to be able to educate you on this. There's a lot of stuff out there, not to mention the fact that in these days, there's tons of education for free on the internet. So, all right. So the other thing we need to begin to bring towards us is the feeling behind what we have in our life already. And as you begin those goals and you write them down, I want you to figure out what your number is. What is your monthly number? If you currently made the money you wanted to make, what number would that be? And most people don't do this. Most people accept a job that pays them a certain amount, which fits their needs. Have you ever considered doing it backwards? Have you ever thought about that? I would like to make this amount of money because this means that I have enough money to pay my house, pay my car, have a little bit extra, go travel, put money away for retirement, and afford my children. Or whatever those things are for you. Maybe children's not on the docket. It doesn't, it's about, and what would that number be? Sometimes it's not as big as most people think it is. Sometimes it's actually much more manageable. And this is about being realistic about what would bring you joy in your life. And then the other practice I like to give people to do is people associate their financial circumstances with stress and burden versus joy and it being a blessing. When you pay your rent or your mortgage, do you get excited? Do you feel blessed that you have a roof over your head that you love? Are you excited when you pay your utility bills? I guarantee you most people are not excited when they pay their utility bills, but we should be. We should be excited about it. Should be excited over the heating and the cooling in our home, able to make us hot or cold versus what's actually going on outside. Be excited about a car payment. It means you own a car. Being excited about putting money towards retirement, knowing that there's going to be a day where you're going to have enough money put away that you're going to be comfortable enough that you don't have to work again. Be excited about money that you're putting into your dreams. Like most people look at their bills like this stack that every month it's like, they dread the mail because that means that there's going to be bills in it. They dread phone calls from bill collectors. So how do you reverse that experience? You have to begin to get in a place of gratitude about these things. So bring gratitude in. Bring gratitude in so that you can feel gratitude every time you pay a bill. Feel gratitude when you get your paycheck, even if it's automatically deposited into your account. Think about how thankful you are. Be even more thankful when extra money comes in. Like, give yourself a moment to really feel in your heart how much joy it brings you. How much joy would it bring you to give money to something that matters to you or to somebody who's in need? I mean, maybe right now it's just a matter of being able to buy some groceries for somebody who's in need. Feel gratitude when you spend money. Feel gratitude when you go buy things that you enjoy spending your money on. Like if you go shopping, You know, you should have this experience when you go shopping that you're excited about what you buy. But there's this addiction to things sometimes that instead of being excited, we buy something and it just sits aside in our homes. Like that shouldn't be the way it is. There should be an actual emotional experience, and it shouldn't just be like a hit. So there's a lot of financial irresponsibility. So this isn't about just filling ourselves with things to make us feel better. This is about actually enjoying that you did all the things you needed to do financially, and then you gave yourself a treat on top of it. And that treat was to be able to go buy a new whatever that may be for you. Everybody has their habit that brings them joy. And then part of this is, as you do this, these old thoughts are going to come up, and as they do, you just bless them and you send them on their way and go, nope, I'm going to be grateful for this. The other thing though is take a look at what's debiting in your life that's not bringing you joy. And debiting, I want to use that word in a couple different ways. So the first way I want to use it is that literally look at what you're paying for in a month. Are there things that you're paying for that frustrate you and that you don't use? There's so many of these monthly subscriptions these days that we have all these monthly subscriptions that we're paying into, $10 here, $15 here, and next thing you know, you're spending hundreds of dollars a month on stuff that you barely use. If you're not using them all, get rid of some of them. Figure out what's important. And part of that is knowing that there's other things you could be spending your money on. And then the other thing is, if you're going shopping because you're avoiding other things or you're not being responsible with your money, you have to begin to realize if that's not going to get you to your goals, what is? And give me just a second. So this is one that I really like as far as like getting into the negative thoughts about money. But one of the things I'm going to pause on for a minute. So this first one, the 72% of adults said that they've been stressed about money in the last month. That actually is from, I think it's from 2015. And the newest statistic I could find, which was from 2019, and it was the end of 2019, is actually closer to 77%. So 77% of adults, and this is before we went into COVID. So I would imagine that that number might be a lot higher right now. And we got to begin to get in touch with the things that are negative and our negative thoughts and emotions about our financial situation. And some of the things that I find common that people go through is they feel like it's hard to make it, it's hard to save it, hard to grow it, hard to earn it, hard to understand it. Sometimes even people feel like it's hard to spend it. So we're going to talk about some common things. And when I was talking about the debits that we spend in money. So one of the most common things these days is bankruptcy. And I'm sure most people are unaware of the most bankrupt group we have right now are actually elderly people. And it's because of their health care. And most elderly people are on Medicare, but most people don't realize that Medicare doesn't cover everything healthcare wise. So there's more elderly people on who've gone through bankruptcy than any other group. So when I was talking about the monthly debits, and I hope I'm not jumping around, I hope you guys are following okay. Let me know if I need to explain anything in the Q&A, feel free to ask questions. So when we're talking about monthly debits, this is about, what we're talking about today is financial responsibility is a big part of it. So the biggest example that I really like to use is Starbucks. 20 years ago, nobody would spend more than 99 cents for a cup of coffee. And it really was likely that you weren't even spending that. You could get a cup of coffee for 65 cents. You'd go to the corner store if you were going to get a cup of coffee. And most of the time you made it at home because honestly, the corner store, unless they freshly made it, didn't necessarily have a better cup of coffee than you. And then you had these coffee shops that began opening up. And if you're spending $5 and that's all you're spending on coffee, you're probably on the low end of what the average person is spending per day on coffee. But let me just give you some numbers. If you go to Starbucks or another coffee shop and spend $5 5 days a week, you're spending $25 in 1 week. Okay? In a year, that's $1,300, which is a little over $108 a month. On the things I'd like you to do, along with writing goals, I want you to think of what else you could spend $1,300 a month on. And let's say you buy all the coffee so that you're making coffee at home now. So what else could you be spending? Let's say you spend $300 instead of $1,300 on coffee because you buy it at home now. What else could you be spending that $1,000 on? I mean, you guys, that's a vacation. That's retirement, that's paying off debts, that's so many other things you could be spending it on. But let's say you're not spending $5 5 days a week, you're spending $10 5 days a week. Now you're spending $2,600 a year. $2,600 a year. In 4 years, that's over 10 grand in coffee. So I want to explain this because I want you guys to understand most people, because they have these negative emotions about money, aren't taking a look at what you're actually spending your money on and realizing that when you learn about money, you educate yourself, then you actually learn how to control your money so that it works for you versus paying other people's bills. I mean, do you guys really want to give 10 grand to Starbucks every few years? I don't. I do well, and I don't buy I buy a Starbucks or a coffee out probably a couple times a month, because I rather buy my coffee at home and spend that money on other things. And that is what being financially responsible is. It is learning how much you're spending on other things, because we're not going to get stuck in the fear and the anxiety of it, so that we can really put that money toward the things that are really important to us. That's what I want you guys to think about. What's really important to you? So, and here's some of where that comes from. So we were not taught, most people weren't taught by their parents or by school how to spend money, how to balance money, how to put enough away to retire, how things like compound interest works, how banks work. There's a lot of things that we weren't taught. And just to give you like a couple things today, I want you guys to know this. So banks only, for every dollar you give a bank, they go lend 12 out. And then they make a lot of money off of that money. This is about learning how to create your own financial situation so you're not depending on other people. So that's what we're going to get into. But here's some common lessons that you probably learned about money. So these are just statements that you've probably heard over the years. And some of these you probably took in and you believe them, like money doesn't grow on trees. So it's this idea that money's really hard to obtain. There's a lot of people who think money's really easy to get. They have no problem making money. Those people have a lot more money in their life because to them, they don't have this belief. These are beliefs. These are not real. These are illusions. Money is the root of all evil. So that's an interesting one. First off, money has no power in itself. You know, money absolutely doesn't do anything. Money, this can't do anything. It's a piece of paper. It's representative of something. And it's not representative of anything that I don't put on it. If I don't say money's worth anything, it's not worth anything. We've just ascribed something to it. And it certainly isn't evil. And if you've ever seen people do amazing, wonderful things with money, you realize that it has the ability to do amazing and wonderful things. Money can't buy happiness. I would agree that it can't necessarily buy happiness, but it does buy comforts that we all do need. When you have financial stability, you're able to make more choices in your life, including giving more money away. And if money exaggerates what's already there. So if you have somebody who's an enormous jerk and they have more money, they're probably just going to be more of an enormous jerk. But if you have somebody who's a really loving and giving person, when they have more money, they're more loving and they're more giving. So it just expands what's already happening. We can't afford it. You can't take it with you. You can't take it with you, but you can also make it do a lot of things before you leave, or you can make it do a lot of things for the people you leave it to, whether that's family, foundations, or anything else in between. I'd rather be happy than rich. That one was an interesting one for me. That one took me a while, and there's this ridiculous belief that money's going to be taking you down this negative side of life. It's ridiculous. You can be happy and you can be rich. They are not mutually exclusive. So I hope that you realize that we're working on aligning with things that bring us joy and how money can help build those. More money should help build more wonderful things. That's what we want to get in touch with today. So that's why we want to get this negative stuff out so we can get to it. And then more money, more problems. And that one's just funny. The best things in life are free. True. I mean, the best things in life are free, but if you knew you could enjoy the people that you love in a place that costs you money to go to, or be able to take a vacation with the people you love because you have more money to do it so that you had less stress, I think that there's something enjoyable about that. Doesn't take away that the people are important. None of this takes away from the positive stuff. It's just about freedom. So I like this because I want people to understand that finance is not taught in this country. If you were financially savvy, people wouldn't be using banks the way that they do. And if we didn't use banks the way we do, it doesn't benefit banks and credit card companies to educate you on money, because you would get rid of your credit cards for the most part. There are some good ways of having debt, and you wouldn't use banks the same way. So they don't teach it to you, which means you're not empowered. You can't make better decisions about your life. And let's just talk about the national debt for just one brief second. The national debt in this country is over $27 trillion. That's it's about, I believe it's in the range of over $80,000 per person in the US. That is ridiculous. So we have a country that's really not more financially savvy than we are. So it's time that we stop expecting Uncle Sam to do this for us. We have to do this for ourselves. And when you do this, it empowers you, it empowers your family, and empowers the people around you, because the more you educate yourself, the more you can educate everybody else. And that's really what we're looking to do. So what support do you need to reach your financial goals? And I want you to think about this a couple different ways. So partially, you may not have habits that align with the goals you set down. So this is why those goals were really important. And now I want you to write down what's the support you need. And these are the different categories that they may fall into. You may use all of these, you may use only a few of them. But I want you to think of, like, what habits do you have that support your financial goals? If you're used to slacking off at a job so that and maybe it means you are looking to get promoted so you make more money within your company. Maybe you're not going to get promoted because you don't put the effort in at that job. Maybe you're looking at building income on the side while you work a normal job, but you haven't been making the effort to do that. So there are habits that go along with these things. And I want you to think of how are you going to create those habits and what you're going to put in to do that. And then who are the people? Are the people that surround you in your life going to support you in getting there? So there's something called the crabs in a bucket, which a lot of people have heard of. So the crabs in the bucket, basically what that means is that if you have a bunch of crabs in a bucket and one of them begins to crawl out, all the other crabs pull it back down and try and stop it. There may be people in your life that if you began succeeding, they're not going to be happy about it and they're going to want to pull you back down. So the question is, who do you need in your life that can support you in getting to that? And I think that this is another thing that I've noticed a lot in working in finance. A lot of people take financial advice from their broke friends. If your friends are not in a better financial situation than where you're at, don't take financial advice from them. Go find somebody who's in a much better financial situation. They say that the best way to get yourself on the track to make $1 million is hang out with other people who've already made $1 million. You'll be next. Success leaves clues. So think about who surrounds you that supports that. What kind of knowledge are you going to need? I don't believe that you have to go back to school to always grow your knowledge. There's a lot of different ways to do it. There's YouTube videos. You can read. I'm a voracious reader. I read several books a month. I read them on all different types of subjects. You know, reading increases your knowledge and so that you can increase your skills, increase your habits. Who are the connections you need? Depending on what you're doing, if you're building a business, you might need connections that can help you grow that. What are the resources? You know, is it something that you're going to have to put money into to begin to create what you want? What are the sacrifices? You know, and the sacrifices could be that coffee. Maybe you need to sacrifice so that you can put the money into these other things, whether that's putting more money into building more income, or whether that's sacrificing in other ways. Maybe it's sacrificing time. So what is going to support you to getting to that? So in that space, I want you to think of how can you create an abundance of money. So this is my little avatar. But I want you to think of this person that has reached these goals, who's got rid of these negative ideas, who's putting in the steps to getting to them, who's beginning to surround yourself with better people. What does that person down the road look like? Because that's your avatar. Your avatar is that version of you that has begun to put this in place. So who is this person? And I want you to begin to think about, it's you, but it's you who has created and made yourself into this version that feels empowered, excited, knowledgeable, and surrounded by the people that are supportive to build that. Does that make sense? All right. So here's why we do visualization. And visualization, meditation, they can be similar, they can be the same. So I want to talk a little bit about the iceberg theory, and I share about this quite a bit. So the iceberg theory is a couple different things, but what it is that we have that 20% that's above the water, right? It's that 20% that is our physical reality, and that's your current circumstances is your physical reality. And if you're living in your physical reality versus the reality that you're looking to create, which is your thoughts, your dreams, your beliefs, and your emotions, and then the 20% is really easy to change once you begin to change your thoughts, your beliefs, and putting your goals into place, and then putting a little bit of action. But we have to get that negative out in order to begin to change that underneath, and then everything else begins to move along with it, and more quickly than you would think. And some of these things is going to be a lot of the stuff that I share with you guys today. If you continue working on this, you're going to have other things that come up. You may have memories. You may have memories of things that happened. I've worked with a lot of people in finance who had memories of experiences that happened when they were little, where they were told no about something, and they felt like because of that experience, that made them feel like they were devalued. So they began taking jobs in life where they didn't feel like they had a lot of self-worth, so they worked for less than they were worth. So once they begin to remove that and go, oh gosh, that was something that happened to me, that was somebody else's experience and belief, and I don't have to carry that on anymore. Now I'm an adult and I can move forward and I know that I'm worth a lot. Then you can, as you begin that new avatar of that person, that future person who has put these things together, all these things begin to fall into place. So let's talk about the emotions that you associate with money. And I think that these emotions are pretty decent conglomeration of a lot of the negative ones that we have. We carry shame with us. You know, we have shame about not having enough money. We have anger about trying to pay bills that we feel like we can't get on top of. And we have shame about having debts that we've put on ourselves. And that could be, the shame one is really, can go really deep, you guys. The shame one may not just be the fact that we bought a bunch of stuff that we couldn't afford. It could be about relationships that we got stuck with debt. You know, shame could be about bankruptcies. It could be about divorces. Shame could be about, you know, going to school and not using the degree and feeling like we have all this financial debt on top of us. So, you know, it could feel like there's burden, frustration, fear about not being able to pay it, anxiety about paying your bills every month. It becomes overwhelming. We're disappointed. And, you know, there's all this doubt. And then we get into this depression over these experiences that we've created, embarrassment, guilt. And you guys, even people who have money have a lot of these as well. You know, I remember talking to a woman and we had a really interesting conversation about her financial situation because her and her husband were buying a home. So there's this excitement of buying a home, and then they didn't tell anybody because they were guilty. And I was like, that's such an exciting and joyful experience, but they were guilty to be in a financial position to buy a home, so they weren't going to share it with anybody. Like, it goes both ways. And it's owning where you're at. When you give yourself permission to be where you are and own where you're at, it gives people permission around you to do the same. That doesn't matter. Where you're at on the scale of financial whatever doesn't matter. And this is not about living a lifestyles of the rich and famous lifestyle. This is about being able to live in a lifestyle where we have a lot of choice about things. So here's a completely different list about new ways to associate emotions to money. What if you could have joy when you thought about your financial experience? What if when you get paid, you think, gosh, this is the step towards freedom? What if there was ease that came with it? Of knowing that you had more money in your bank account, knowing that if something happened tomorrow, you have enough savings that, you know, you're going to be fine. What if it brought you happiness? What if you felt strong and empowered and excited because it meant that you can buy your house or go on the trip or do things with your children, and it brings congruency and confidence, and you feel like you're aligning with something purposeful in your life because you get to make choices where you put money into things that are meaningful. What if money was fun? What if having money meant that you could buy things that brought your family together? You know, you get to go buy a bunch of kayaks and all go kayaking all the time. Or you get to go camping on a regular basis because you buy a camper. Those may not mean anything to you. It could be something completely different. My point is just like, what if it brought your family together because you're able to do things that do that for you? What if you felt really educated about money? Knowing that if you lost your job tomorrow, you have so many skills and abilities that you can just pick up another job quickly. What if you just felt grateful to feel so financially blessed? And I mean, this is what we want to get into, you guys, is to get into these positive emotions about the financial situation. So we're going to do a visualization. Give me just one second. Ooh, hold on. All right. So I want you to just shut your eyes for just a moment. We're going to do a really quick one because we're almost done here. But I want you to think about that future version of yourself. And I want you to think about what that looks like for you, where you are, who you want to be, having the money that you need to pay your bills in comfort, to do the things with the people in your life that are important to you, and to grow the things that mean something to you. What does this future version of you look like? What does this future version of you feel like? What are the knowledge and the expertise that you have? And I want you to feel grateful and excited about what you're creating. All right. So I do some other visualizations and meditations, which you guys are all more than welcome to come to my next meditation. If you signed up for this class, I do offer that. I do offer this, the beginning class for free. This is the code to come to the first one for free. If anybody has any questions, please ask them now. There's a Q&A on the bottom of the screen. We're going to be wrapping up pretty soon because the next one's going to be coming, but I want to make sure that if there's any questions, I'll be here for a moment, so feel free to ask. And again, the meditation is going to be coming up in the beginning of September. I wanted to give you guys the link to it and then the code if you need it. Oh, you're so welcome, Liana. Happy to do so. I share a lot through Facebook and other stuff as well, so feel free to check me out on Facebook. And I'm on Facebook, Instagram, everything's at 100 Years of Bliss. And so you can definitely check it out there. And it's been an absolute pleasure, you guys. Oh, thank you, Kim. Money is like a wonderful lover and invite him into my life. Exactly. So absolutely. I hope you guys had a really positive experience with it. My whole goal is that you change that experience. All right, here's a question. So a baby step to make a change to home economics. I would say to go find some education. And I know that sounds really simple, but I would go read. I'm a big fan of finding things to read. Go to the library, look at the financial place, and look for something that resonates with you. One book that I think that's really good that I enjoyed a lot was called Money, a Love Story. And her last name's Northrop. And she talks a lot about her emotional experience with money. But the other thing is there's so many books out there that just give financial education. Go find a book that resonates with you and just begin reading. All right. Well, I hope you guys have an amazing day, and it's been a pleasure.